Hello, and welcome to the 17th video in my Punishing Graven lore series. I am glad to say we will finally be getting back on track with the main story, and diving into Chapter 13, Fake Ascension. Now I do intend for this to be a multi-part video, 2 parts if all goes well. In this first part we'll cover the first and second sections of the chapter, as well as their side stories. We left off with Hasen and Nicola examining a record of Luna's assault on the ARU, where she used Hwashu to track down and acquire a high-gain antenna cluster. However, her methods in doing so seem to have planted seeds of doubt within her faction, as Roland, chief among them, has noticed Luna's changing attitude. The Forsaken and Forest Guard continue to pick up the pieces after Luna's rampage, rescuing the citizens, providing medical aid, and investigating Luna's attack patterns, highlighting that most of the deaths were concentrated at the Research Institute, leaving most of the other areas surprisingly well off, much to the surprise of Rosetta, and more importantly, to the other Ascendants. After the retreat order was given, Roland continues to question the bizarre nature of the incident, explaining to Gabriel that none of the details match up. Luna's attack was far too quick to have been a true extermination attempt, and the damage was localized to such a small area, so this makes Roland wonder why she would do it in the first place. Had it been a mission carried out by any of the other Ascendants, it would have been a simple infiltration alerting the least number of people possible, but Luna's half-hearted attack will only inspire more people to fight back down the line. The rant goes so far as to have Roland question Luna's qualifications as an agent, and finally getting a reaction out of Gabriel, albeit one of disgust, he invites Roland to help out with his newest secret project. It's business as usual on Babylonia, whether it be citizens going about their day, maintenance workers keeping the station running, or the logistical employees ensuring everything on Babylonia is running smoothly.
12 seconds later.
Emergency alarms begin blaring as crew on the bridge are thrown into a panic as the PA system announces Babylonia's rapidly descending altitude. The technicians are in a frenzy trying to correct the system, but there are too many problems with not enough people to solve them. Lee and the rest of Grey Raven arrive on the bridge, and before they can work on helping, they are pushed into one of the preparation rooms to wait for Hasen. While this happens, Karenina, Bridget, and their respective departments try everything they can to get the engines working again, but are met with little success. Hasen and Asimov arrive from their meeting to help with the situation, and Karenina explains that the issue is not with the hardware itself, but that the engines are receiving a constant stream of shutdown commands, leading her to speculate that the issue is with the Gestalt AI. Hasen gets a call on his terminal and takes Asimov with him to meet Grey Raven, where they give a quick briefing on the situation. The summary being, Babylonia is losing power fast, and the engines have been locked to propel it back down to Earth, meaning Babylonia has a real chance of crashing on the surface. Cutting to the chase, Asimov tells Grey Raven that they must use the Spear of FOS to infiltrate Gestalt, find, and eliminate the cause of the issue. You can think of the Spear of SOS like the nerve gear from SAO. You connect to the system and it exports your consciousness into the game, or in this case, a highly advanced ChatGPT. And with the explanations done, Asimov pushes Commandant into the immersion frame. After entering Gestalt, Grey Raven encounters anti-interference protocols and forces their way through, making it to the base level of the virtual space. In another location, Hwashu speaks with the Ascendants who are responsible for Babylonia's current emergency and gives a time frame of 17 hours before impact if things continue as is. Luna sends the others to prepare for Babylonia's eventual crash, when Hwashu picks up a suspicious tone change coming from both Gabriel and Roland. But she elects to ignore this warning, instead having a rare moment of vulnerability, and wishes Alpha good luck.
2 hours later.
Luna receives an update from Hwashu regarding the infiltration, and while the situation is still largely under control, Hwashu has lost some authority due to Grey Raven's actions. To try and slow them down further, Hwashu releases disguised subterminals that will act as distractions for the Babylonia forces. And while Hwashu works, Luna enters a meditative state to reflect on Chu's conversation. Yes, that same conversation she can't stop thinking about. When Alpha connects, snapping her out of it as Luna gives her more words of warning. Back inside Gestalt, Grey Raven pushes deeper into the virtual space and encounters a large number of defensive programs when Bianca arrives to save us. With her help, we defeat the defense terminals and search the area for any clues on the infiltrating program. After finding nothing in the area, they meet back up with Bianca, who Lee calls out as a fake. He called Asimov after her arrival and found out the Purifying Force is on a separate mission in City 015. Additionally, the Veritas frame is highly unstable and negatively affects the mind, making it a frame Bianca would never use on this type of mission. Having been exposed, the program drops the camouflage, revealing itself as one of Hwashu's subterminals. Switching its method of obstruction, it vanishes into thin air, so with Liv's scanning and Lee's analytical prowess, we begin searching for the false Bianca. Hwashu relays the status of the subterminal to Luna, and she questions why Hwashu was using diversions rather than outright confrontation, and it explains that suppressing Gestalt and crashing Babylonia is taking all the available computing power, leaving none left for combat. But Hwashu assures her that everything is happening according to plan. Grey Raven reports the false Bianca incident to Hassan and Asimov, and we figure that if we find the subterminal, we may find hints to the main Hwashu's location, since the two must be linked. We begin searching the area for any traces of the escape program, looking for a possible pattern in the surrounding data. Liv manages to pick up 4 signals, 2 from Babylonia task forces, 1 from Team Ouroboros, and the other an unknown ID. We decide to search the unnamed Babylonia signals, since a disguised ID wouldn't be something as specific as Team Ouroboros, and an unknown signal is far too obvious. So we begin following the fake Bianca, as that's our best lead at the moment. On the outside, Asimov, Karenina, and Bridget are in a frenzy trying to direct enough power to keep the immersion chamber online, as well as slowing Babylonia's descent. Bridget suggests that they pull Grey Raven out, but Hwashu has hijacked the system, and any attempts to force them out could severely impact their minds, leaving lasting effects. Grey Raven proceeds to the data module and notices a lack of local programs. Quite an unordinary situation, but knowing Babylonia is quickly nearing the bottom of low Earth orbit, we are running out of time, so we force our way through the remaining defense programs and find a secret channel where our fake Bianca was hiding. We move in and destroy the terminal, but hearing no news from Asimov, we suspect the main Hwashu is hiding somewhere else. To our surprise, the destruction of the terminal caused a previously restricted pathway to open, so we jump in to look for Hwashu. Meanwhile, Murray sits in the archive building, jerry-rigging together his own immersion machine to infiltrate Gestalt. He dons his mask and the simulator links his consciousness into the virtual space. And while Gestalt is busy dealing with Hwashu and Grey Raven, he has free reign to uncover as many secret files as he wants. But first, he locks down the block he's in, essentially shutting off everyone's ability to monitor or log out of Gestalt from the outside. At the same time on the bridge, Karenina and Asimov notice Murray's infiltration but can't uncover his identity just yet, when the monitors suddenly go blank, cutting all feed from the inside. On the inside, we try telling Asimov about our run-in with the terminal, but the connection is cut, and having no other choice, we move forward to find the main terminal. Sensing that it is cornered, Luna has Hwashu abandon the plan to drop Babylonia and recalls the other ascendants, and Alpha takes the chance to inform her that Roland and Gabriel took a detour on their way to their mission locations. Back with Grey Raven, we encounter the main Hwashu terminal and successfully destroy it, ceasing its infiltration of Gestalt. We try to contact Asimov with little success, and look at the terminal screens, seeing him and Karenina too deep in their work to respond back. Liv notices something on the ground, and Lee can tell it's a data fragment dropped by Hwashu. After having Liv analyze it, we discover it contains a set of coordinates, but before we can investigate further, Asimov finally answers back and confirms that they have regained control of the engines, and thanks to Grey Raven, Babylonia has begun ascending. We present him with the coordinates and prepare to disengage from the virtual space, but can't due to Murray's lockdown. Asimov has Lee get on the terminal to work on bypassing the lockdown from 2 sides, when the now functional Gestalt begins to treat us like foreign entities. It begins erasing the virtual space, and us along with it, when Asimov turns his defenses in on itself to buy us time. We reach the minimum threshold, and he pulls us out just in time, leaving us with minimal mental impact. After we escape from Gestalt, Hassan calls us in for a briefing. He says the next step will be an assault on the coordinates Hwashu dropped, as they may lead to a possible Ascendant hideout near City 075. Nicola joins us on the bridge, giving us full access to the support and task forces to strike what could be a critical blow against the Ascendants. After Hassan gives his orders, he holds Commandant back for a private discussion, waiting until Grey Raven has left the bridge to begin speaking. Hassan and Asimov give what can only be described as a double-edged sword, that being the closely guarded secret as to why Lucia's performance has been subpar recently, a secret that will either bring Grey Raven victory or destroy the team as we know it. Back at the archive building, Murray pulls off his mask and pockets a data drive from Gestalt's terminal. He disassembles his immersion machine and exits the building, only to find Valeria of Team Scarab waiting for him. She demands Murray give her the drive, and he hands it over without a fight, as he knows failure to do so could cost him his life. But even with the questionable ending, his mission is complete and he's satisfied with that. While at the same time, back at the hideout, Luna tells Alpha to prepare the defenses, as she knows Babylonia has no intention of letting these hostilities go unanswered. A few days prior to the current events, Murray sits in a meeting with Hassan and Nicola to discuss the report he submitted. Now, the report itself is of no concern, the issue is how he was able to acquire such specific information. Of course, he refuses to name his sources as they go against Babylonia rules and carry the threat of disciplinary action. Hassan tries to reassure him that the benefits of his information outweigh any broken protocols, but still he refuses to say. Nicola gets tired of the pointless back and forth, sliding Murray a file for his next assignment as the two get up and leave the room. When Murray gets up to leave the conference room, he bumps into Celica, who hands him an ID card before leaving, obviously not wanting to be part of whatever he's about to do. And right after that, he receives a call from Hassan. He tells Murray about files lost during Operation Arcadia, files that would aid the function of Babylonia, the rebuilding of human civilization, and could even contain a possibility of ending the war. Now, despite Murray officially working under Nicola, he's still loyal to Hassan to some degree, which is why he's receiving information like this. So while Nicola calls Valeria as his backup, Hassan has Murray as his. Despite the importance of these files, Hassan cannot make a move directly, as this would alert Nicola to his movements, so he plans to have Murray infiltrate Gestalt, using Nicola as an act, and then find the files and relay the information back. Now, I would like to clarify, Hassan and Nicola aren't enemies or anything like that. It's more like they have different views on how far they're willing to go to end the war. One of them would sacrifice 49 people to save 51. I'll leave it up to your imagination to figure out who. After the call, Murray makes his way to the old archive building, using the ID card to get past the safety doors. He logs into Gestalt and ends up spotting Grey Raven. Murray watches as Grey Raven fights the terminal, and he's able to tell at a single glance that it's not the real Bianca. While watching the fight, he gets a chill up his spine as Valeria's construct, named manages to sneak up on him. He activates the trap he set up beforehand, and Yatta is forced back, giving Murray time to escape to the core area via a zipline. He navigates through a series of back doors and passages, all the way until he makes it to the command bridge. There, he finds Huashu's main infiltration terminal, and without Cerberus, he can't handle Huashu in a direct confrontation, so he sneaks just outside its radar detection range. Connecting to the terminal, he manages to break in using an override program Asimov developed. On the topic of Asimov, he has just been approached by Valeria on the outside. Due to an unknown deal between him and Nicola, Asimov is obligated to help them track Murray, despite his palpable disgust of the two, so he provides them with Murray's current coordinates. Using Yatta as a proxy, he's able to see the signal of the invader and recognizes the program being used as one of his own. At this point, Asimov is sure the person they are tailing is either a member of Babylonia or the Science Council. Inside the virtual space, Murray finally hacks into Gestalt, and with Babylonia's entire information database in front of him, it would be a shame to just leave now. He sifts through the files, adding filters until he gets a dozen or so files all labeled top secret. He transfers them into his terminal when a shadowed figure suddenly starts moving behind him. He throws out a data net to stop his pursuer and sprints out. The chase devolves into a game of cat and mouse, a game Murray is currently losing as he throws out his last defensive program. With Valeria's signal less than 5 meters behind him, and Yatta's signal approaching from ahead, he is largely out of options. But to his surprise, a data pipeline opens in front of him, and not wasting any time to think, he jumps in, with the access point exploding behind him, stopping his pursuers. Having lost track of him, Yatta brings Murray's file ID request into question, wondering why he'd be looking into Chrono construct tech. But they soon drop the topic, as information this classified could easily get them kidnapped and killed. But before worrying about any of that, they have a mission to complete. Yatta discovers a route to catch up to Murray, but it requires them to travel through an area heavily defended by Gestalt programs. In the next area, Yatta catches Murray's signal, and the two watch him wandering around in the open. Feeling suspicious, Yatta does a scan, finding out the one in the open is a data lore, and the real Murray is hiding in a back corner. Because Murray locked contact to the outside, they can't get a confirmation on if he's a friendly or not, so they will try a non-lethal approach first. But if worse comes to worse, they will put him down. Murray hides in the background controlling the lore, when Yatta and Valeria appear out of his blind spots. Seeing as they haven't made an attempt on his life yet, he tries to strike a deal, laying out the information he collected earlier. However, Valeria remains unfazed and has Yatta pierce Murray's chest. But to their surprise, the Murray they were talking to was the lore, and the lore was the real Murray.
Sometimes my genius is... it's almost frightening.
Thankfully, them listening to his speech gave him just enough time to unload the immersion program. Valeria rushes to try and intercept him, but it's too late as Murray vanishes into data. The lore explodes, alerting the defensive programs who swarm after the two, chasing right on their heels until they manage to deactivate their own immersion programs. On the outside, they report the events of the mission to Nicola, who confirms they were the backup in case Murray failed. However, Nicola says their mission is not over yet, and gives them Murray's coordinates so he can be intercepted at the archive building. After logging out, Murray rips the integration mask off and pockets the drive, silently kicking a second drive into a camera blind spot before dismantling his immersion machine and leaving to confront Valeria. Some time later, he strolls through the task force corridor until he arrives at Grey Raven. Using Nicola's name, Murray gets the liaison officer to leave and hops on a nearby data panel. And to help out the team, Murray gives them some of the Corona equipment he acquired from his last trade. While Babylonia is falling, we take a look at a small town on the surface, seeing three silhouettes walking down the street. Once again, we see our Lord and Savior Nanami, accompanied by Martin and Rohachi. The two complain to Nanami, wondering why she dragged them to what seems like the middle of nowhere. She says that she's on a journey to speak with a mecha babushka somewhere in outer space, but since her voice alone isn't capable of reaching that far, this entity gave her coordinates to a signal transmitter, and because she finds it boring to be alone, Martin and Rohachi were dragged along with her. They continue walking around, with Nanami getting up to her usual nonsense when she finally admits she's very lost, as the coordinates only gave her a general search area. Her two companions, without a word spoken between them, walk off, attempting to leave Nanami to her delusions as she runs after them. After some more time searching, finally they come across the antenna they were looking for. Nanami connects, immediately having her consciousness thrown into a virtual space, oddly similar to Babylonia. She encounters the entity that refers to itself as the Other Will, and this will wants her to complete this mission that has been hinted at for the past few chapters. Nanami goes on a decently long rant about Cardman Rider, but the main point she wants to get at is that humans are capable of creating amazing things, and she's not sure if they deserve to be wiped out. This Other Will says that both it and Hwashu have already confirmed that humanity will end, but Nanami still wants to give humanity a chance, and even when the Other Will says that humanity will still end all the same, Nanami stands resolute, because she is different from the Other Will, Hwashu, and the Ascendants, in that she loves humans. We arrive at City 75 and meet up with Bridget, who gives Commandant a new protective suit, and enhances Grey Raven's Inver devices to help with the extreme virus concentration. While we wait, Asimov contacts Commandant to explain the issues going on with his vision. Commandant disconnected from the virtual space too abruptly, and the Spear of FOS didn't have enough time to completely shut down. This means his brain is still somewhat connected to the simulator, giving him real-time data generation for the time being. Asimov thinks this could be an advantage, and uploads the entire Spear of FOS directly to Commandant's consciousness, allowing him to restore, record, and play back any data he finds. Essentially, Commandant can look at a scene and piece together exactly what happened and simulate past events. Immediately after giving us the explanation, Asimov bails and connects us to our new liaison officer, who just so happens to be Murray. He has Bridget give us security terminals that will help us investigate more easily by creating safe zones along our route, and after our last-minute checks, we head out into the city. Not too long after leaving the supply station, we find the streets covered in red spikes, surrounded by pools of strange red liquid. Liv scans the area and notes the virus concentration around the pools approaches dead zone levels, but outside of that, risk of infection is low, so long as we move forward with caution. While searching for clues, we come across a horde of corrupted, but still lack the virtual data to create any projections. We clear out the group in front of us and take any relevant data, when Liv's unease catches our attention. She says she picked up a massive virus signal in the area we were about to head into, but the scary part is that it vanished just as fast as it appeared. While everyone discusses Liv's issue, Bridget calls to say they were attacked and had a security terminal destroyed. Moments later, Lucia also gets a notification that our nearest terminal was attacked. We have Lee set one up at our current location when the patrolling corrupted spot us, and defend Lee while he sets up the terminals. Lee finally finishes up, putting an end to the danger, or so we thought, as Liv's expression sinks. She detects a fast approaching virus signal, a signal so large it could consume the surrounding area. She reinforces Commandant's suit as the others try to think of a way to escape. Knowing it's too fast to outrun, the only viable option is to find higher ground. Liv leads us into an abandoned hotel, and we climb our way to safety just in time as a tide of red liquid floods the area, and in an instant, the red tide floods the streets, even forcing us higher as it climbs up the hotel walls. We force our way inside the building as the tide enters the lower floors. Everyone checks themselves for any sign of infection, and Liv takes this chance to inspect Commandant's suit, injecting him with another serum while the others inspect their invert devices. Lee decides to investigate the tide, determining that along with the virus, it contains corrupted and human remains, all broken down into base components. Liv gets the same results, but adds that the tide acts like a biological virus and exhibits parasitic behavior. The room falls silent, as this means the virus has evolved to a point that it is developing traits of biological life. We wonder how a discovery this massive could go unnoticed for so long, and we come to the conclusion that Hwashu may have leaked this information intentionally. Thinking about the possibility of Hwashu wanting us to discover this, the four of us look out at the tide, as a faint voice calls out saying, "Help me." After hearing the voice, we head back into the hotel to search for any survivors, clearing out debris and scanning for vital signals. Inside one of the storage rooms, we find the remains of a construct and Commandant who were sent here on a mission before us. Commandant decides to use the available spatial data to witness their last moments, and maybe get a clue as to what happened here. We watch the constructs discuss their findings, and they line up exactly with what we discovered earlier. The only difference being, they learned the tide was receding underground, and that's how it avoided detection for so long. Their Commandant prepares to leave and send the results to Babylonia, when their third team member Coco walks into the room, and the recording ends. After finishing the recording, Lee sets up another security terminal, and the increased signal allows us to find more data fragments to update the projection. Coco enters the room, saying the tide is able to store the consciousness of those who fall in, and can even speak, mimicking the voices of others in its own way. Liv speaks up, saying she can't help but wonder why those constructs sounded so familiar, when it dawns on us that those voices are the same ones we heard in the corridor earlier. But before we can process what that might mean, the recording shows the very recognizable shape of Lamia. She quickly kills the Commandant and one of the constructs, as Coco and the other remaining construct run out of the room, attempting to escape and report back to Babylonia. Lamia chases after and corners Coco, saying they were investigating under the Ascendants' watchful eye, meaning the Ascendants have to be nearby if they were watching the area so intently, and it's not a large leap to assume that if the Ascendants are here, Hwashu should also be nearby, giving us more reason to suspect the Ascendants and Hwashu may not be entirely on the same side. Bridget calls us right after, and we tell her everything we learned about the Red Tide and Hwashu's possible status as a double agent. Since all of this seems to be linked to the Ascendant base, finding its location is the #1 priority, as it will lead us to the source of the Red Tide and Hwashu. So Bridget sends a support ship to pick us up along with the other stranded teams so we can begin our new mission.
2 hours later.
Some time later, we proceed with clearing the corrupted and searching for clues, but some of the corrupted are different in an unexplainable way. Asimov calls and we send over the data on the strange corrupted we just found, and the information manages to put a look of surprise on even him. He says the corrupted can't even be called corrupted anymore, and instead will refer to them as hetero creatures, as they are more living entities than machines. Murray also joins in, telling us how other teams have heard rumors of people going missing in the nearby ruins, no doubt the work of Ascendants. But Lee figures that if they are being so obvious in the way they do things, they must have some kind of trump card nearly completed, and no longer have to worry about operating secretly. Getting all of the important information out of the way, we cut the comms when Commandant sees a projection of Roland of all people, chasing a young construct down the street. We follow after the projections, using the Spear of FOS to get a full scan of the events. Roland manages to convince the construct to join the Ascendants, and gives him a test to prove his worth. Simply make it to the coordinates Roland provided alive. We head the same direction as the boy, hoping to learn what became of him, as well as find out where Roland was intending to lead him. Further ahead, we find another data fragment of the boy, and discover he sadly failed to make it to his destination alive, and became corrupted as a result. We search the area the boy was in and come up empty-handed, when another projection comes into view. A researcher named Angel looks around a scavenger camp, asking for information on her sister Leodrin who had gone missing. We follow Angel as she finds Leodrin's mission area, only to receive a message that her sister went with a mechanical angel to gain the power of Asnet. Angel calls in support from the higher-ups to locate her sister, and they send her a team to help bring her back. Seeing this familial bond, Lucia can't help but compare it to Alpha, Luna, and herself, wondering how the former could go so far as to turn their backs on humanity. Commandant offers her some reassurance, promising Lucia that he will stay by her side even when it's time for her to finally learn the truth. We come across the next data fragment showing Angel arriving to find her sister. She tries to convince Leodrin to return with her, but she has decided to follow Gabriel in the possibility of a different fate, rather than dying a pointless death in combat. Angel throws herself at Leodrin, begging her to come back, and in a flash, Gabriel appears, killing the constructs and crushing Angel under a pillar of stone, as Leodrin cries out and the projection ends. In the next projection we see of Leodrin, she has been abandoned by Gabriel for failing to regain her sanity after her sister's death. Now she aimlessly wanders the streets until she is surrounded by a team of constructs. Before Leodrin is killed, Lamia arrives and eliminates the constructs from the shadows, forcing their commandant to retreat. Suddenly, the red tide emerges, swallowing both the constructs and the commandant. Leodrin sees a tide projection using the voice of her sister, and with her shattered mental state, she can't help but fall for the deception. And against Lamia's warning, she throws herself into the tide as it retreats back underground. Continuing towards the center of the city, we find another set of ruined buildings, abandoned factories, and ravaged supply crates. While exploring, Liv finds a physical book, quite a rare find in today's digital age, but what sticks out the most is the message written on the last page. Earth has been struck with innumerable disasters, and time has washed every one of them away. Live for tomorrow, because all will pass. Addressed to someone named Shrek. After reading the quote, she places the book back where she found it, not wanting to disturb someone else's memories. When she returns, we learn that Liv has been to this area before, long ago when she was still a human medic. But it's not just her. Lee also recalls coming here for a coronal survey mission, and even Lucia remembers the area, but she can't seem to recall exactly why. Seeing as the secret is nearly out, Commandant decides to tell her that the memories from the old Grey Raven team, Alpha's memories, were sealed away and that he has the authority to unlock those memories for her. But she tells him to hold off and would rather prioritize the mission for now. We come across an area corrupted by red tide spikes and search for a way around the hole in the ground when we come across more data fragments. The projection displays Alpha and Luna, with Luna admitting her entire motivation for becoming an Ascendant was to survive and meet Alpha. She asks if Alpha wants to go back to who she once was, but Alpha believes had she not lost her old team, she would still be trapped in the delusional hope Babylonia raised her on. Having gotten a glimpse of Alpha's memories, Lucia decides now is a good time to face the truth and find out what happened to force Alpha down the path of Ascension. Lucia sees the first half of the incident, where Alpha, currently Lucia, battled a riot-type corrupted with her teammates Shun and Merle. They managed to corner the corrupted when their invert devices suddenly malfunction, forcing Lucia to fight alone. The battle ends and Lucia is contacted by her commandant, being forced to leave her team to provide support. The projection ends and Lucia has accepted the first half of her memories, giving Commandant some relief that she may be ready to see the rest, but that will have to wait as Murray calls to warn us of the tide. He has Bridget come and pick us up, and we regroup at the supply area to prepare our final push on the Ascendant's base. Some time ago, long before the events of the chapter, we are introduced to Shrek and Bella who are exploring the ruined city. In the center of the city, they find emaciated locals wandering the streets, as the tide seeps up from the cracks in the ground, swallowing those who are less observant. Bella grabs a nearby scavenger and trades some food for information about the tide. The boy says the locals call it heaven, as they believe jumping in can grant eternal life. He takes the food and warns them of a nearby bandit troop, and Bella gets the idea to take out the group to replenish their supplies.
Several days later.
In the coming days, they take over and dismantle one of the weaker groups, watching as the bandits are forced into the tide by the scavengers. The two discuss the rumors of the tide being heaven, and Shrek asks Bella if she would jump into the tide if she ever learned the rumors were true. Naturally, she wouldn't, as she considers it an admission that she's given up hope for the world. And with that, they leave the roof and retire for the night, planning to leave early the next morning. Later that same night, Bella sneaks out, wanting to trade with the scavengers for some of their books. At dawn the next day, Bella returns with a copy of Cardman Rider and writes her favorite quote inside the back cover. When they finally pack up their things to leave, they find a young boy blocking the exit. He calls in the rest of his group hiding in the alleyway, and they rush in to steal their supplies. Within just a few minutes, Shrek and Bella manage to subdue most of the intruders, and seeing that they would lose the fight, the boy pulls out a gun and fires at Bella. The pain drops her instantly, and the boy rushes in, stabbing her with a knife to the chest. Bella fights back, kicking the gun out of his hand. Shrek snatches it out of the air, killing the rest of the thugs as the boy takes Bella hostage. Shrek begins talking about Cardman Rider and lowers his gun to distract the boy, and in the split second he is stunned by Shrek's words, Shrek puts the last bullet into his chest. He rushes to Bella, trying his best to patch up her wounds, but she's too weak to make the trip down the building. He takes her and the supplies to the roof before any more intruders can enter the building. The two wait on the roof, trapped between the invaders and the tide emerging from the streets below. Hearing the bandits close in, Shrek rushes off to handle the situation as Bella's condition worsens. She knows she would only hold Shrek back and vows to explore the unknown, walking to the edge of the building and jumping down towards the tide. After the incident, Shrek encounters a tide projection of Bella and bids what remains of her his farewells. He leaves as the tide retreats and finds the wall where Bella wrote her quote, writing under it, "Of course, but where do I find you then?" He decides to erase everything after "of course," hoping it will serve to boost the morale of someone else at some point in the future. And with that, he picks up his bag and continues his journey alone. Cough, cough, cough. I wish I had an excuse. I don't. I can't even blame school. I was just being lazy. That's my bad. But onto the chapter stuff. So super cool. You can definitely tell it's a setup chapter. It gave us a bunch of different threads and plot lines to follow, but didn't really resolve anything. You can definitely tell that they plan to resolve that stuff a bit later. So starting off, we have Hwashu being like a double agent, kind of leading Babylonia to the Ascendant hideout and giving us breadcrumbs where to find it. We have Murray and his informant somewhere, well, like how Hassan and Nicola are questioning him. How did you get this information? How did you get such detailed, insight into what the Ascendants are doing? So I definitely have some speculations there. We have the absolute wild card that is Nanami and whatever the heck this mission she has going on is, talking about, wiping out humanity, and apparently Nanami is like the only thing stopping this other will, and apparently Hwashu too, from wiping out humanity in some way. I would love to learn a bit more about that. We have the Red Tide, this mysterious thing that just kind of appeared and seems to be a major threat. We have the Ascendants and their trump card, some type of secret weapon that they're hiding, or that they've been hiding and working on. So definitely a ton of cool stuff that we can cover in sections 3 and 4, and I can't wait to get into all that and possibly see more of Alpha's memories. Oh, not possibly, definitely, we have to. There's no way that they don't let us see the rest of Alpha's memories. And we get to see what actually drove her to where she is now, what made her decide, okay, I'm going to become an Ascendant and abandon all of humanity. Man, there's such good stuff. I can hardly wait, and I don't plan to make you guys wait too long. So thank you all for actually sticking by for so long. I read all your comments and stuff, and they're so sweet. They give me diabetes. But I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you all for watching the video, and I hope to see you all in the next video, where we will cover sections 3 and 4 of chapter 13, and I hope to see you all there.